The Forgotten Portrait. James had always been fascinated by the mysterious old house at the edge of town. It stood tall, abandoned for as long as anyone could remember, its windows boarded up, and its iron gate rusted and overgrown with ivy. Local legends whispered of its haunted past, but James, ever the skeptic, dismissed them as mere superstition. One evening, unable to resist the allure any longer, James decided to explore the house. Armed with nothing but a flashlight, he slipped through a gap in the gate and made his way up the overgrown path. The door creaked open, its hinges protesting against years of neglect. Inside, dust filled the air, and the silence was broken only by the occasional drip of water from a leaky ceiling. He ventured deeper, his flashlight cutting through the thick darkness. The house seemed frozen in time, furniture covered in sheets, old paintings lining the walls, and a heavy sense of history that pressed in on him. As he moved through the grand hall, something caught his eye, a portrait hanging crookedly on the wall. It was of a woman, her face pale and expressionless, her eyes hauntingly fixed on James. Curiosity piqued, he stepped closer to examine the painting. The woman's eyes seemed to follow him, and a chill ran down his spine. The longer he stared at the portrait, the more he felt a sense of unease creeping in. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something wrong with the painting, something he couldn't quite understand. Suddenly, the air grew colder. James shivered, but before he could step away, the image in the portrait began to change. The woman's expression twisted into a grimace, her eyes darkening as if filled with rage. The colors of the painting seemed to shift and swirl, and the room around him began to distort. In a panic, James turned to run, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. He was trapped. His flashlight flickered, and in the brief moments of darkness, he could feel something moving behind him. A cold hand brushed against his neck. He spun around, but there was no one there. The painting on the wall now showed a twisted version of the woman, her mouth wide open in a scream, her eyes now pleading. Desperate to escape, James rushed toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. The house seemed alive, the walls closing in on him, the air thick with an unexplainable presence. As he pounded on the door, his flashlight flickered out entirely, plunging him into darkness. In the silence that followed, James felt a presence standing behind him. He turned slowly, and there, in the darkness, stood the woman from the portrait, her eyes glowing with malevolent intent. With a final scream, James disappeared into the shadows, and the painting returned to its original form, hanging crookedly on the wall, as if nothing had happened.